Life is complex, so is our mental health. It cannot be understood by diagnosis alone. Our philosophy is treat the person, not the mental illness. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Humanizing Mental Health. I'm Trent Nakers.
And I'm Jeremy Alcorn.
Well, today we're going to be doing another episode of our Understanding Therapy series. And we have a very special guest with us today. Well, she's been on the program before, but this is the first time we're doing it. And when we're doing it live, she's actually sitting across from us. We have Amy Alcorn Hendricks.
Hi.
Yeah, welcome,
Hi.
Amy. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, it's great to have you in to actually be doing this in person rather than over the phone. Because I think we've that was a little bit of an interesting experience for you the couple times that you joined us, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot nicer to be here in person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, now we don't have to futzel so much with technology and kind of worry about that lag, which I think was always interesting for us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And without that, like, eye contact, sometimes Trent and I we just get going.
Yeah.
We're like, oh yeah, whoa. Oh yeah, there's someone else with us.
Yeah. Actually, I was re-listening to a couple of those episodes and I'm like, yeah, I think you and I actually called it out. It's like, where's Amy? Is she still here?
I was in Idaho. That's where I was.
Yeah. Hey, did you bring us any potatoes?
Unfortunately, no. I really should have, though.
Yeah.
They're really good.
You know, like, I don't know, like, because I know you really like your French fries, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Maybe when we're done the episode, we should celebrate with some French fries.
Yeah. so
That'd be great.
So welcome back to Canada. Be Evan New.
Yeah. A.
Take off.
Hoser.
Yeah. So today, we're going to be developing in, as Trent said, about this notion, this therapy series. In fact, I think I might have jumped in because I think you haven't actually introduced it yet.
No, we haven't. And, I'm glad, because we haven't even introduced the title. And actually, title is a really apt thing to start to talk about because today, the title of the podcast is Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. And when we were developing this series, I think for a lot of us, self-help, for a lot of people is usually the first stop even before they come and see a therapist. And, you go to your self-help aisle as, well, I usually do because I'm a bit of a book hound. I'll go to my local bookstore. But the thing is, for a lot of people, it can be a little bit overwhelming about, what books to choose and if this is really beneficial for us. And you have some pretty cool information about bibliotherapy, don't you?
Yeah, so fascinating thing, context. One of the gurus that I initially followed in my career, Dr. David Burns, I've mentioned him before, cognitive behavioral psychiatrist. And one of the things that happened in his progress forward is that he developed a cognitive behavioral therapy book called Feeling Good, which he then published. And the intent was not for the professionals to learn cognitive behavioral therapy. It was for the lay person to be able to learn the skills and use them in between appointments. Now, unbeknownst to him, he had this book out, and unbeknownst to him, some people were doing some research on it. What they did is that individuals that were coming in to see psychiatry were placed on a waiting list and said, you need to wait 6 weeks before you see the psychiatrist. And in that time, we want you to read this book, Feeling Good. And 69% of the people didn't need to see the psychiatrist by the time they were done reading the book.
Wow, that's fascinating. When I hear that, my first gut reaction is, oh no, I'm out of a job. It's like, okay, or maybe rather than seeing people, maybe I just need to write a good book and distill my knowledge.
Well, and funny enough, right? Because the realm of learning, what are we doing right now? This dissemination of individuals being able to connect into self-help in a way in which it's not just in the therapy setting. So certainly it's funny, this meta experience, like actually bibliotherapy, but podcasts could fit into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, Amy, because, your father is a therapist and you've spent a lot of time with me. What is your perspective on self-help books?
Well, I actually haven't really looked into self-help books very much. I have ADHD, so reading books is kind of tricky for me. I actually don't really like to read. So
I was elected to lead, not to read.
Whenever I personally want help,
Mm-hmm.
being with my generation, with Gen Z, I just go to the internet and I just type into Google, what does this mean?
Having said that, actually, it's funny because as you described that and you said, I have attention deficit disorder. Well, how did you actually learn about what that meant for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
the irony
it's hard for
in
me
this
to
is
read
thick.
books, but actually I do sometimes listen to audiobooks. And there was one book that my dad suggested that I read about ADD or ADHD that I wanted to learn more about ADHD. And he gave me this book called Scattered Minds by Gabor Mate. And I did listen to that one because audiobooks are a little bit easier for me. And I was very captivated by it and I loved it. And it taught me a lot about myself that I feel like most therapists never could.
And for those of you that are keeping count, yes, that is our reference to Gabor Mate, our for the episode. So as you're playing humanizing mental health bingo, that is your one for this episode.
No, funny enough, because Amy and I are sitting at the kitchen table the other morning as she was eating some delicious homemade bone broth soup that I made, and she was saying, I have this understanding from this book that helped me create a new philosophical path in moving forward in my life that from Scattered Minds. So, but I would like to have an understanding about obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, is there a book that will put this into the human perspective the way that Scattered Minds did? And so it's funny as we have this conversation that actually the notion of self-help is fundamental in terms of the way in which you were looking at how to move forward or understand things.
Yeah, and as you bring that up, I think that you guys are highlighting something that I've talked to a lot of people when they ask me about self-help books that is really key, is that sometimes when you look at the idea of self-help, it's sort of in isolation, but really it's sort of that jumping off point to have that conversation and to broaden your knowledge and to, if you're going to speak to a professional or speak to other people, so that you gain that greater understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, if you don't mind me asking a question, because let's supplant you for a second and we'll go, okay, we're going to put you into that and see how well you fit with the people that the research was done on. That is, the research was done on people. They're going, read this. Let's see where that takes you. Mm-hmm. And if we were to supplant you and put you into that kind of position in research, we go, you read this book. Well, what was the effect? What was the difference in your life? What was the impact? How would you kind of both qualitatively say that, but also kind of quantify how that affected you?
Well, when I read Scattered Minds in particular, it really made me reflect on my childhood, because that's something that it emphasizes a lot, is that ADHD is something that develops in childhood or as an infant. And so it made me really reflect on my experiences and also the dynamics with my family and how that can create different effects on your mental health. And it made me not only think about myself, but also how would I like to raise a future family? Because one day I would like to be a mother and I would like to have kids, and I would like to know how to raise them properly.
Wow, as I'm hearing you mention that, I'm hearing all of this insight come off, and rather than it really coming from sort of a deficit model, it's wait, how is this positive about me, and then how can I build forward with that? I'm curious about where sort of that positivity came from with the book.
Well, actually, I did give the book to my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law because they're very interested in that type of thing as well. And one thing that they mentioned with reading the book is the first part is very depressing. I will warn, it's very depressing, where it just talks about all these things that are wrong, and you're kind of like, okay, well, how do you fix it? Well, in the second part, it tells you what you can do. And that's not to say that having ADHD is wrong or bad. I wouldn't necessarily take away my ADHD, or if I have kids with ADHD, that's fine. But it's really telling you how you can live in this type of society, or how you can try to cope with some of the more negative aspects of ADHD, and where those aspects come from. They really come from trauma and trying to protect yourself from emotional harm, and from this emotional harm that would have happened if, how do I explain it? With
Sure.
relationships.
Yeah. Like, it's always one of those tricky things, because as soon as you say trauma, someone that doesn't come from the trauma lens feels like, wait a minute, but I had a wonderful childhood. And it's amazing here to be able to sit here and talk about some of this, because I'm your dad. I'm one of the attachment figures in which the trauma would have been attached to. And I might have mentioned this before, but I think about this picture that I have. That's this example that I'll never forget. And it's in my mind right now. I can see it as I'm sitting here talking to you, in which Amy is lying against my chest. Her head is on my shoulder. She's asleep. She's less than 18 months old. And behind her back, I've got a video gaming controller. And where am I? Am I connected to my daughter? Or is that just something that I have to do? And that what I'm really doing is playing video games. And I come from this place of compassion for myself, for not understanding and not knowing, for compassion for every other parent out there that doesn't understand, and also compassion for this little infant that was, I was supposed to be, my attention was supposed to be with her. Mm-hmm. Is it a surprise that then her attention isn't in that centered way, when she wasn't demonstrated how that is supposed to work from the attachment figure? So,
have you heard him explain that story before, Amy?
Yes, I've heard that story a few times.
Yeah, so I'm curious about what it's like for you to hear your father talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally really like video games, so like,
I taught her something.
I would have loved to, play the GameCube too, but I do kind of feel like when phones started to become more of a thing, and all my friends were on their phones, I'd be like, "Hey, what the heck? Like, we're hanging out, but we aren't actually hanging out." Mm-hmm. And maybe part of that came from me sleeping on your shoulder when you're playing GameCube. I don't know.
Sure. Well,
that's something that does bother me as a person.
Yeah, a reasonable connection, right? That's reasonably connected.
Yeah, like we could call that I was gonna say like an implicit memory almost within the nervous system.
Mm-hmm. And putting this back into the big topic that we're talking about today, so we go, all right, these are some of the things that you didn't learn in therapy. No. You didn't go to a therapist and learn those things. You learned this actually by reading and listening to the book. I think it's equally the same. But and by reflecting on your experience with your life, with that material that was in front of you, presented to you.
Yeah, and I correct me if I'm wrong, because you've said that you've listened to Scattered Minds. Have you listened to any other self-help books by any other authors other than Gabor?
I've listened to other Gabor Mate books, but I don't know. I think there was maybe one or two that I started, but then they didn't quite fit with me, so I just kind of lost interest.
Okay, because I'm really curious too. I'm thinking about this with other books that I've read that have connected with me and other ones that haven't. And I'm because you say how they connected with you. I'm wondering if it's what was it about these other books that you found that they didn't connect with you?
Again, I'm not really the best reader, and part of that is because sometimes it just takes time for me to connect to something.
Mm-hmm.
So some books, if I'm not really interested for the first like hour or two, then I'm like, and I just drop it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because
Speaking of phones.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who. Yeah. Well, anyway. For those of you, that wonderful sound, and then we all get distracted by it. Okay, it's gone. Good. Yeah, because like I'm thinking about the way that Gabor presents that information. I think is really key with self-help, because like you said, he took you. It was like very dark, very dour, but then it's like, okay, what do we do with this? Because I think sometimes when people read self-help, if you're not prepared for it, sometimes it can actually be very stigmatizing.
Sure. And in fact, one of the things that really jumps out at me as you say that is if someone is like going down the self-help aisle, or they're scrolling through their Audible and they're wondering about what it is that would be helpful for them, and they have this motivation or desire to have a better understanding, we need to recognize that, one, what's the legitimacy of the information that's being shared? Who is the author? What's their credentialing? What's their background to be an expert in an area or field? But the other part is to recognize that people come from very different philosophical positions in their understanding of how the world works. So if you have a humanist that is like Gabor Mate that is sharing things, you're going to have a very different perspective than if you have a behaviorist who is sharing things. And the average layperson that's not consuming, a whole bunch of books within the psychotherapy, psychology, human behavior in the social environment, then you might get thrown down a very specific path, and that expert might frame things in a way that does not help you at all.
Yeah, or even like if you have an expert that has also struggled with these issues too as well. Because I mean, Gabor talks about the fact that he has struggled with trauma and ADHD, but it's is there going to be some transference there with if they're looking at it more from a deficit model? Because I've even read some books myself where it's almost as the author is writing the book, they're processing as well. And like, is that really healthy for the individual at the time to be reading that?
It's a good question. This is one thing I have said overtly. Gabor Mate massively fit for me, but maybe that's because of a crossover in ways of experiencing things. And is it projection? Like there's things within the context of that writing that humanize it, in which he demonstrates his own personal experience with it. But is that actually projection? Does that mean that other people experience this in the same way? And so I'm always a bit cautious about that, in that while I found that so helpful, then I don't want to somehow put my narrative over someone else's experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I hear that too, is that sometimes I think even when we're going and we're recommending books for people, it's like even as therapists or even as individuals, like when we say, hey, this is a great book, you have to think about, okay, is this person going to take the information in the same way as I will?
Sure. Or that it was intended by the author. What does that look like? Sure. Because there can be massive help. Like as we come back to your story, Amy, when you're looking at kind of those outcomes, what difference did it make? What difference did it make that you connected with this book?
It made a huge difference in my life. It really changed the way that I looked at mental health and society and families and many different factors. And it kind of made me just realize, wait, there isn't just one way of looking at things. I feel like our society often views mental health through, like you've mentioned, through the illness model, and we should be focusing on mental wellness. And another thing that I think is when we do look at things like ADHD, we often look at the symptoms like, oh, I have ADHD. That means that I can't focus, or that I twiddle my thumbs in class to try to sit still, or different symptoms, which that's true, but the symptoms are not what make up ADHD. They're symptoms. There's something underneath the iceberg. And so I feel like a lot of mainstream stuff will talk about what's above the iceberg, which does need to be talked about, but what's underneath the iceberg isn't talked about a lot, and that's what Gabor Mate talks about. And so that's what I personally really enjoyed, is because I have this curiosity where I'm like, I want to learn more. I want to learn like these things that we don't usually speak of.
Sure.
Yeah, and you know, like as you bring that up, Amy, I love that you have, you know, that curiosity of wanting to melt down the iceberg to the core or get that core sample. Now all I'm thinking of is winter. But like as we bring that up, I think that this is almost a good question for maybe Jeremy and I to look at, is like when people are going through self-help and you're getting these insights, when is it maybe a good time to recognize, hey, when do I need to seek out further advice from a professional?
Sure. Like, how is it that I take this? Because sometimes I need help in integration, right? For sure. Like, for me, I didn't just go to psychiatry, get a diagnosis, read a book, and walk away with in my life. No, that didn't happen. It meant also seeking out help to be able to rework some of my understandings and integrate a change in my life through therapy.
Absolutely. And, you know, I like what you said there, and I completely agree with you. And just to kind of summarize what you're saying, like one of the main points is you can have that, this is a stepping stone, but then saying to yourself, okay, if I'm, you know, how is this going to be integrated through my whole life? And if you really are struggling with those points, or even if you want to learn more, kind of saying, maybe this is a time that I need to come and see like a person like myself or Jeremy or even a psychiatrist, just to further that information, just to get it deeper, or maybe just to get a more concrete understanding.
And maybe then I have 5 appointments or 8 appointments rather than 20.
Absolutely.
Because all of this work I've done myself in understanding then is more about just a higher readiness for change when I get into therapy.
Yeah. And, you know, I almost think we're almost starting to get on another topic for another podcast, which is, why is homework important in therapy? But maybe that's one we can cover next time.
Sure.
On humanizing mental health.
In fact, I want to ask you a question, Trent.
Sure.
What's your number? How many books now? What's your number?
Actually, okay. So, granted, I've been doing this since 2007, so it's actually before Audible was bought by Amazon, and I'm up to 499.
Wow. You know, it's funny, isn't it? Wow. Like I had 500 in my mind. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
No, I just bought an autobiography, or not an autobiography, a biography of Eleanor Roosevelt last night for cheap. Yeah, and that was my 499th book.
And it makes me wonder, because for you, the integration of knowledge is actually about a vast number of things. It's not just, when I say just, it's not just psychotherapy books, but you see the human behavior and the social environment across all of the stuff that you work with. But I'm wondering about some of the highlights of some of the books that are just like, these are ones that just absolutely were foundational in developing who you are.
Developing who I am. Okay.
And your perspective.
Good question. Okay. So, Body Keeps the Score, by Bessel van der Kolk,
which is trauma focused.
And then of course we have Scattered Minds by Gabor Mate, which we've covered today. Why people disagree about politics and religion, which actually really that one was fascinating, like just learning about how the brain itself works. Ego state therapy, and then trying to think what's another one that I go.
Well, I'm wondering about the internal family system stuff because I imagine you have like consumed multiple books about that.
Oh yeah, I've definitely consumed a few different ones by that one. No Bad Parts, which is the most latest one, which is really good. And then of course there's just good old internal family systems therapy, which is just a basic one, and that one. Okay, why can I not? I can never remember the gentleman's name that created internal family systems whenever I go to talk about him. But the one book that I use all the time, which was recommended to me by Anna, but I re-listen to it quite frequently and use it quite a bit with my clients, which is of course self-therapy, which is an excellent introduction to internal family systems, and it has a lot of activities that you can do either by yourself, or it's actually really good to do with couples.
And you know what? This actually leads me into another question, because 499, that leads me into another question, which is if someone was just to approach you on the street and they were like, oh, hey, you're the guy that does humanizing mental health. And they were like, Trent, I want a couple of books. Like if there was like just 2 or 3, they would get me started in the right direction from a general position of people understanding mental health and moving forward. What would be like the ones you just boil it down to, just a few that you would recommend to our listeners?
For mental books, like just for general books for general mental health.
That would be like just a starting point that would likely help almost anybody.
Okay, I'm actually going to look through my phone here so I can actually get the titles right, because I read a lot of books and I can think of a few right off the top of my head, but I need to get the titles and the authors correct.
As you can tell, if you were wondering, this is entirely unscripted.
Yes.
If you haven't realized that about our podcast at this point in time, we have a title and we just then let it flow and pull knowledge that we have into the process. And it looks like your Apple is actually right now just popping up on your phone. That's curious.
Yeah. Well, no, because of course.
Oh, you turned it off so that the phone wouldn't ring anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the sanctity of the podcast room.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay, let me see here.
All right.
Going over to the Audible app. Dust off the library. As I do sound effects. Okay, library, come in.
Yeah.
As you're looking at that, a thought that I had, I don't know if you guys can relate to this, but I feel like for myself that trying to find a good like self-help type of book that I resonate with is kind of like finding like a religion that you resonate with. Like it's a certain philosophy. Like there's, some people look at different religions and are like, what do I believe in? And sometimes they find a certain organization or spirituality that they're like, this resonates with me. And so they choose to, live that way. I feel like with self-help books and viewing the world and mental health, I don't know exactly what I want or what I believe, and I want to find something that resonates with me. But I almost feel like I have to go through a bunch of stuff that I'm like, this doesn't really work for me before I can get there. And so it's kind of nice having a dad and a friend that have similar views to me, where I can be like, hey, I want to learn about OCD or ADHD or these things. What would you suggest? Because I feel like I can trust that more, and then I have more interest in it because I'm like, someone who I know who's in this type of field who has similar views to me suggested this for me. So that's something that I personally find helps me with self-help books. If I just take a shot in the dark and just choose something random, I'm kind of more skeptical. Like, is this something that's actually going to help me, or might this like actually cause harm because maybe it's not the right type of material that I'm looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've loaded up, and I appreciate what you're saying, because there are a lot of various books out there. Some of them even written by people that are professionals that I would definitely not recommend just because I don't appreciate. Well, I shouldn't say I don't appreciate. I don't agree with how they present the material itself. One book that I just had it here that I actually really love. Oh yeah, this is. It's not about mental health itself, but it's something that I think that everybody should actually listen to. It's called The Lost Art of Listening by Michael P. Nichols. And it really teaches people how to communicate with other people and how to communicate with yourself. And if you want just a general good book for understanding psychology, one of the ones that I've found that are actually quite fun is the like Batman and Psychology, or you and I have talked about like the Psychology of Marvel Comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I would say
Psychology of Superheroes.
Yeah, Psychology. Actually, that is actually a really good like soft introduction to just general psychological terms. Like actually, I always enjoyed the Psychology of Supervillains a little bit more because those are a little bit more easier to get into. But also too, one thing, believe it or not, that I listen to quite a bit is actually the dummy books. Like it's Sociology for Dummies and different things. Mm-hmm. Because even though those aren't like they're literally not like they're not calling you a dummy. I swear, I swear. Yeah, but they break down a lot of the more complex ideas and help you to integrate those. Mm-hmm. And like what I would say too, like if you're looking for an audiobook, what I would say that I usually do is I go through, first of all, like read the synopsis, see if it fits for you, for what you're looking for. Listen to it to make sure that you're able to stand the narrator, because there's some terrible narrators out there. And then also look through the reviews, and like don't just look for like the positive reviews. And if you're looking for something on a specific subject, try and find a professional that has reviewed that and see what they think.
Yeah, so you can help to create that sense of legitimacy for the material that you're going to experience. And is it going to be something that you can take in?
Absolutely. And also remember too that you can, on Audible, they have a return policy. If you've listened to so much, you can still return it.
Oh, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. So if you listen to, if you keep getting a book and then returning it, then they're gonna have a problem. They're gonna be like, okay, you're just trying to pay, your $14.99 or whatever it is for the book. But that would be my advice for books. What about for you, Jeremy? Like, what are some of your favorite audiobooks?
So and for me, mostly I do digest my stuff through Audible. That's the majority of the place that I get my books. And of course, I went through the entire Gabor Mate collection, with his most recent being The Myth of Normal. When the Body Says No was very transformational for me as well, in the realm of the hungry ghosts. But then some of the things that you already mentioned, When the Body Keeps the Score, Hold On to Your Kids, Why Parents Need to Be More Important Than Peers. And then, what is it called? Raising a Secure Child. Now, one of the fascinating things to me is something like Raising a Secure Child, while it's designed for parents, can give a really great reflection for someone to understand their own attachment narrative, their own way in which they formed through attachment, and can really help them to know how they're then relating to other people in their life and why they're relating to other people in their life the way they are. Yeah,
that's definitely a good one there too, because it's also about like that internal individual for yourself.
Now, the fascinating thing for me is actually I find fiction very therapeutic.
Oh yeah, and actually that's one thing that they actually recommend to a lot of therapists is actually to read fiction, because then you develop that empathy. That's for me actually that's part of the reason why I've picked up a lot of biographies now, because even though I enjoy fiction and I love my Star Trek, my Doctor Who, putting myself, like, for example, where in the mindset of Eleanor Roosevelt and like everything that she experienced during the 1930s, that kind of gives me a different perspective too as well. I was going to say one more book that I forgot that I should mention that is actually really good. That is A Therapist's Journey into Therapy. It's called Maybe You Should Go and See Someone, which was really quite interesting. And so if you're honestly wondering, maybe I should go and see a therapist, I'm just saying that this might give you some insight into what it's actually like to be in the therapy room as a client from somebody who's also a therapist.
Yeah.
Hey, Trent, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So you've said that you've been reading books since 2007. So that's basically 16 years, which is a good chunk of time. I'm curious, as you've been reading books throughout the past 15, 16 years, have there been any trends that you've noticed throughout those years? Like, oh, this is like a new trend this year, or this is a new trend this decade. And what do you think about those trends, if you've noticed any?
Well, I tend to not follow trends. I tend to follow what I like. But yeah, like what I've found, actually, believe it or not, when it comes to psychological books and to mental health books, is there's a lot of CBT out there. Like, you type in CBT and it's like quick, simple CBT, and it's trying to take these complex ideas and put them in like 2 or 3 hours. And those are the things that I would say for people to kind of watch out for if you're wanting to get a really good understanding of a book. I mean, if you want to get a summary, that's fine. But if somebody's trying to, look at, like, let's say DID into
dissociative identity disorder. Sorry, we get into acronyms and forget to.
Thank you. Yeah. In 2 hours, I'm not saying that it's not legitimate information. I'm just saying that it might be quite condensed.
Yeah, and almost to the position of being irresponsible, because someone that would have such a complex concern, which is a fraction of a fraction of people, in terms of that particular diagnosis, but they picking up a book and getting through 2 hours or 3 hours and being like, okay, now I understand it. No.
Yeah, and what I would say too is, sometimes some people will say, okay, I've listened to one book by Richard Schwartz, which, of course, Internal Family System, not because I actually looked up the books. I know all this. And the thing is that, like you said, Amy, finding a good book is or a good path is like finding a religion. Just because you've read one chapter on the religion or have read the Bible once doesn't mean that you maybe completely understand things. It's about going deeper and about always looking for more information.
Yeah, there are some people that have been doing bibliotherapy for a long time, right?
Absolutely.
Because they've been studying the Bible for centuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's about probably looking at different things, and maybe it fits for you at this time in your life, but if you go back and you revisit it, you might find something new because of the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally.
For sure.
So it feels like we kind of have pulled things together.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with, Amy, before you go back to Idaho and maybe bring us some potatoes?
Well, I think I feel a little bit more inspired to try to look into some more books. I think I'll have to re-listen to this podcast because you mentioned so many, Trent, but I'll have to re-listen and be like, write those down, and try to look up some of the books that you recommended, because you're one of the people that I trust. So I'd be like, yeah, I'll definitely try that out.
Yeah, we should definitely put some recommendations into the show notes.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'll definitely do that. Amazon should. If if you want to send me some money, because I'm sending you some clients, feel free. I'm just kidding. That was not a request for services. But yeah, and also too, I would say, if our listeners are interested, or if there's books that they found that are valuable for them, maybe let us know on Facebook, or if you can leave comments by our podcast too as well.
Yeah, you can find us at Humanizing Mental Health on Facebook, so that would be great if you want to do that.
Awesome.
All right, well, on that note, I'm Jeremy Alcorn.
I'm Trent Akers. See you later.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that this message has been as meaningful to you as it has been to us. If you're looking for help, you can find us on Facebook at Humanizing Mental Health.